as we are more and more online, it's that camera is making such a difference to how people perceive you. It's sort of like we don't put on a suit and tie, but we put on a nice lens and you stand out. And the inverse of this is you can end up sort of like upstaging someone a little bit. It's something once you start noticing it, you realize it makes such a big difference.
This is On Camera, On Brand, a show for professionals who want to look good on camera, but don't have the time or expertise to turn their office into a Hollywood studio. In each episode, Rob Ruscher uncovers how professionals can get the most from their home or office setups. If you invest the time to share your stories on camera, you should be on brand.
Welcome back to On Camera, On Brand. I'm your host, Rob Ruscher, and in this episode, I talked to Michael Forrest. Michael started his own app-building company, Squares TV, and his most popular app is Shoot, which allows you to use your iPhone as a webcam, and it gives you full manual control over the settings. He has built other apps that can help you level up your presentations, demos, or anytime you're on camera. And we go over all of those in this episode. So without further ado, let's jump in. I think we just start into it, and I'll start, Michael, bringing you on with how I found out about you is, like I told you earlier, is I was looking for not just a way to use my iPhone for a webcam, but get the manual control. So from Googling, I found out about you and that app, and you do a lot more. Would you mind even start by just a quick intro? And I just want to know, how did you get into app building?
Yeah, so I'm a software developer. I've been sort of around the houses, agencies, and all that kind of thing for years. And sort of 3.5, nearly 4 years ago, I said, right, I'm going to quit contracting and start doing this kind of thing full time. 2 years in, I'd made something that no one wanted. But meanwhile, this camera app that I'd sort of thrown together maybe like 5 years ago. I was living in Berlin in this flat on my own. I discovered live streaming and I was like, I want to use my phone as a webcam. And I couldn't find an app. And I said, right, what have we learned? If you can't find a solution to a problem, then at least throw it up into the app store so people can find it. So I threw it up there, put a price on it. And then 5 years later, sort of COVID hit, and it was sort of like suddenly everyone was trying to figure out how to do remote work, video conferencing, upgrade all that stuff. But, I've been programming since I was like a small child, and I've always been quite interested in computers as kind of creative tools, And I had an Amiga when I was, as soon as I could afford one, I saved up. I did a paper round when I was 13, 12 years old, just trying to get enough money to get that computer I'd seen on Blue Peter or something on the that's a British reference. That just to sort of, because I've just always been excited about that. And it's been like making music on it and then sort of I wanted to make games, and then I sort of got a bit more serious and I was like, I want to make tools and help people with their lives. But yeah, so I've just been doing it forever. And then I guess I kind of did it professionally for a long time as well. So that is I was rambling in a circle, but yeah.
I feel like a lot of people's career does a little bit of a circle and comes back around. What was one of the first, I mean, like you said, you were probably building stuff and making things for forever, it seems, but what was the first app you made that you were trying to maybe make money on or trying to do professionally?
I've been interested in sort of mood tracking and mental health stuff actually for a very long time. And I had this app. Back in 2011 was the last time I quit my job to try and make it, try and do this. So I had an app called Happiness, which was doing all right for a little while. It wasn't really making enough money for me to not have to do anything else. It was like making hardly anything by the current standards. But that was just asks you at a random time every day how you're feeling. And then by the data analysis, you can start to sort of overcome certain mental hurdles that we might have. So a very different sort of thing, but all kind of connected with that same desire to sort of get the most out of myself and help other people get the most out of themselves. So if it's either the sort of the mental procrastination and motivation, sort of that kind of side of it, to me is just as important as so the first app, I always say the first app I made was when I was 10 years old, which was this LED panel, which let me remind myself what to bring into school that day. So I sort of soldered a load of diodes with a friend up the road. He helped me kind of turn my design into something that we could build in a little wooden box. And that sort of feels to me like my first sort of productivity app. But as I got more into that community, as I sort of started to learn more about the business, because the technical side of it is I've been able to build stuff and design stuff even. I've cut my teeth doing that kind of thing as well over quite a few years. But the business side of it, how do you actually make something people want? that took me a while to get my head around, and sort of seeing that so many developers like me start with some like productivity tool or little thing like that. And the world doesn't need that many to-do list apps. I spent couple of months making a productivity to-do list app, and, I've sort of made all the mistakes. But yeah, like the first ones, from wood and diode and LEDs to sort of the first iPhone, it's through to sort of, even before the iPhone, that same happiness tracking app was a Facebook app. And that you sort of, during the initial days of Twitter, where you'd have sort of send a DM to this bot and it would sort of track it that way. But yeah, so quite a few at this point.
Yeah. And I'm interested too to hear, you said, and it was a little around the pandemic when Shoot took off, and what was it that, I guess my question is, what made you want to use your phone in the beginning? Because I feel like even now, some people feel, and not judgy way, but a lot of people think just their face cam is fine that comes into their webcam. And it's like, if you're trying to do this professionally, like so you must have seen that trend or a value to that sooner. And I'm just curious if there was a reason or something.
For me, it was very much that I wanted to have like more than one camera going, and I wanted to play music and show different angles. And I don't think I had a DSLR at that point. Like I'm on the Canon today just because I do like a bit of glass if I can, and a bit of like focal length, that stuff. But it was just, I know I've got an amazing phone in my pocket, and you could spend money on a better webcam, but like you just sort of fire up the laptop webcam and you just go, it just looks horrible.
Yeah.
And even in the latest, like I've got like one of the latest like M1 MacBook Pros now, and they've sort of done a little bit more on it, but they don't really care about making a laptop a really good camera. They care about making a phone that's in your pocket a really good camera because you've got it in your pocket and it is a camera, but they're never going to make that laptop camera even remotely as good as one of the one that's on your phone. So it makes a lot of sense to use that. And then I was quite taken aback when Apple even sort of like doubled down on that by actually letting you do that their way as well. In, as you say, like you have no control over that, unlike Shoot. But like now I know they're never putting an amazing webcam in a laptop. And it does make a difference. It's like those cameras are bad, and you just look.
And I noticed too, even when I saw that Apple was doing it, I guess, for free wirelessly, you could just like, it would see your iPhone as a camera, and it was like, oh, that's so cool. But then I was still like, it's not great, And for me, like I told you earlier, the biggest thing for me is manual control, with the cinematography background. It's like, I need to control every setting, and not just because I want the control, but I know how much better, you can make it look. So was that something like right away with this app, you're like, I would want to control, or was that something after you got it connected, you're like, oh, I want to control more?
Well, initially it was the simplest app in the world. It just took the preview and stuck it on the screen, and you had to mirror the screen. But as soon as I started getting these emails every day, people wanted to control this, and I just need to make this a fully manual camera. And so I sort of dug in and tried to figure out the user interface for that. And now I think it's pretty nice to use. But yeah, like, and it doesn't, the thing is, you let the auto settings take effect, and it's like fine, but if the light changes in the room or something gets brighter or darker, that sort of exposure is constantly adjusting, or you move and it's focusing in on, it's just really important to be able to lock that down, isn't it? And I just think it's just something you come to really, you notice when it's not there, right? Like, oh, I just need this is really awkward. And you can try and sort of adjust it in, like I'm on Ecamm, coming through Ecamm here, and there are some sort of like picture settings on there, but it's not the same as sort of changing the lens in the camera, which is what you're doing when you're controlling it with Shoot, for example.
Yeah. You mentioned on something interesting and it just slipped my mind, so I'll have to remember what that was to come back. Oh, it was you don't notice it until you notice it kind of thing. I don't know if I messed up the quote, but that is something I think is so interesting that I just want to point out, because a lot of people that I've worked with, they said like, oh, I didn't think I needed it. And then they go to a conference and even if there's 6 people, 9 people, it's like no one wants to look the worst. And I'm not saying anything physical, but no one wants to have the worst audio and camera stuff doing crazy, especially if you're the one presenting, especially if you're the one selling something. I think there is a value to have it. And I love the second camera idea. That was your first thought, because for me, like I said, it was the opposite. But as soon as I had it having cameras, I was like, oh my gosh, I have an easy camera that I could cut to. And I just feel like anything you can do professionally being on camera can either connect with your audience, whatever your goal is. I think you can do that quicker if you have some of these tools, you know?
There's that. It's another reason I got into the video side of just being online was because, Squares TV is my website. That's where I'm running a lot of this stuff through now. That originally was my club night back in 2013 in sort of East London. And I was putting on all these really amazing sort of like indie artists. And they had these, sound sculptures and all this kind of stuff going on. And I just noticed that they were completely invisible to the internet. Because until you've got a good camera, a good microphone, good audio on these things, it only exists in that space. And that's a wonderful thing in some ways, but it's profoundly limiting to those artists that are sort of trying to get seen. So those was sort of a driving force behind that. But like, as we are more and more online, it's that camera is making such a difference to how people perceive you. It's sort of like we don't put on a suit and tie, but we put on a nice lens. And you stand out. And the inverse of this is you can end up sort of like upstaging someone a little bit. If suddenly you've got a really nice camera and someone else is supposed to be the teacher, it's sort of like, then they really need to sort themselves out because you do and it's sort of indefinable in a way, but I just even look at your image compared to mine. I'm like, it's got really nice contrast going on there and I need to adjust my settings a little bit. And it's something once you start noticing it, you realize it makes such a big difference.
Yeah. And for me, I think it's also fun. I love doing all the tweaking and playing around with the lights and seeing what looks good. And anyone that's watching it, hopefully they don't mind, but I feel like I change my background up all the time and I just always testing stuff and just kind of seeing what works and not. And kind of transitioning into like almost trends, seeing it like, do you see anything? Are you hoping for anything? And maybe we'll just keep it even into like the content creators, people on video, like in the B2B space and stuff and selling and presentations. And I mean, I just feel like virtual events are everywhere. And now I'm even seeing like hybrid events where they're doing a mix, where people can come. And then just seems like the video side of things is not slowing down at all.
I don't think it will, and I think there's something I really love is a sort of like immersive style of presentation. So it's tempting what we're kind of getting used to is like some online Zoom presentation. Can you see my screen? You share it and everyone's sort of like, nods off as maybe your face is in the corner of the screen or something and you sort of show this big white slide. But what I really love is sort of being able to be on camera and then just bringing up sort of like the text, like, like some titles, like just they can just be part of the image. I don't know what's coming across here. And just bringing things into the frame and treating it almost like sort of taking some of those cues from, traditional media, traditional broadcasting, where you're not going to, it's rare that you sort of they had all these production values, this highly interactive thing. I think we're going to see a lot of that stuff has been pioneered over there and it's sort of in the gaming space. And I tried translating some of that stuff to music. But I think when you've got stuff that is of such a high quality, so engaging, so interesting going on in one space, and then you sort of come to work and you're like, oh my goodness, this is the most boring thing in the world. You start to want to bring those things in, and that's where things can get a lot more engaging and interesting.
Yeah. And I feel like I've even heard people talk about this, like on my LinkedIn feed and stuff, how B2B is turning into B2C in a way where it's no longer just, the whiteboards, here's some numbers and text. It's like, in really order to sell to these companies and people, that they want more entertainment. And I guess that's a great way to transition too, because another app you made that I thought was really cool is Draw, right? And I'll let you give the overview, but the quick version is you have your iPhone doing your camera, and then you can have an iPad or a stylus that's plugged into your computer, and you can draw and do text. And that's the quick overview, right? The real basic version.
Yeah. So it's called Video Pencil, and it's an iPad app it just lets you draw something as you're talking, and you can change the color, you can change the thickness, and you can bring in images, you can bring in videos, you can sort of slow motion through those. So it's a full telestrator. So, and the way I use it is, say I'm doing a tech demo or something, I want to show something, and maybe that takes a bit of setup. I'll pre-record the tech demo onto a video on here. I have another app called BeatSheet that lets me run through something. It'll automatically load up the video, and then I can just sort of draw on that video and sort of annotate it and talk people through it. Or if a question comes up, I can sort of go into my library of demos. And because this is my world, it's like showing people how to use my app. That's like my B2B thing that I end up doing the most. But yeah, it's a super clear, super simple app. It lets you draw on your video, but it also, you can see where you are on the video. So you see, I'm sort of able to kind of line up a drawing with my face. And that sort of ends up having some quite interesting benefits as well, where you can start to, you sort of have a preview window, and that's, you can be on a call, or you can be broadcasting or live streaming or doing those other kinds of things. And you can sort of like have a little preview window down there. But yeah, like it's super simple, really. Just, I want it to be something that you just don't have to think too much about. I have a Mac app called Video Pencil Camera that is very easy to connect that into Zoom. You just sort of fire up this free app and it becomes your virtual webcam. And then like if the iPad's running Video Pencil, it will just come through and overlay that for you. And for more advanced people, if you're on Ecamm, if you're on Mimo Live, if you're on OBS, you can sort of wire it up in a more sort of personalized way. But I've been trying to make that the ability to just draw on top of your face, just draw and sketch without having to say, oh, can I have screen share permissions? Oh, can I just share my desktop and show this thing? And or like, even like desk view, that's kind of cool. But like this, I just like it. You don't even have to break eye contact to start drawing and it just helps with that communication. I think it just can make things a lot clearer.
No, I love, even with the Shoot app. I mean, and again, I'm still learning all my stuff too, and there's so many software. But I found that with the stuff I've used of yours, there's a way to make it very advanced, so I can really nerd out and see how to connect. But I feel like, especially with the iPad, I can see it even for a consulting session. If I just need to hop on, you connect, and then you can just circle, like we were talking earlier. Presentations work and slides are great, but even if you can just add a little circle, highlight, something that it helps someone engage. Like even when we were talking earlier, as soon as you drew on your screen, I had to look. I had to stop and see what was going on. And I think that can be a really good way to use if you're trying to hit the key points, whether that's on a sale and you're trying to hit some emotional points, or you're just trying to highlight differences. I can just see that as just such an easy way to make this a little bit more interactive, like the virtual calls.
And a Video Pencil Camera as well, it does let you share your desktop and sort of zoom in onto a bit of it. And then you can be sort of laser pointering that point and doing that kind of thing as well. And I've got quite a cool feature where sort of you can have your desktop and it will sort of go down in 3D and sort of get out your way, and you can talk to the camera and you sort of bring back up the deck. And I think stuff like that I think is useful, but it's like, what's happening there? It can really make people sort of, wake up a little bit, because it goes beyond, because it, you did it so casually, but I mean, there's some tech behind that. It's like, what did you just do?
And
I'm trying to sort of take that away. Like I'm trying to take that complexity away so you can use it, but I do all the work to make that like work easily, right? So
no, I think that's key too, because it's hard it's one thing if you're shooting a big commercial and you have a week or two of prep and you're doing it and you shoot everything. But for people that are just, most of their day is on camera, whether it's recording podcasts or selling, whatever the object is, or you're just making your money as a content creator, it's like, I can't spend 2-3 hours every day setting it up. Like I need to be able to sit down and go. That's the only way to get it as consistent, I feel like, as the market is needing right now. So
yeah, absolutely. That consistency side is so important, and sort of taking away as many, just letting you express the thing you want to express without getting bogged down in all the technical side of it. And that's sort of like, that's sort of the reason behind BeatSheet, which is the sort of third main pillar on my website on Squares TV. You can see BeatSheet is just this app that lets you sort of set up, like plan your content in a way that sort of will connect into your AV stuff as well. So if I've got a demo or a piece of something that I want to show, I can set up my BeatSheet document. I can type into it. I can say what I want to say. I'll get that on a teleprompter, but I can also make it sort of select the right scene in Ecamm Live and select, go to my iPad for this bit, open this graphic in Video Pencil for this bit so that I can start drawing on it, so that we can sort of like, you can plan out those presentations in a way that goes beyond just sort of writing it in notes or something, in a way that's actually going to let you sort of have that simplicity of editing it. But then when you press go, it's sort of helping you, like you don't have to remember all this stuff. Like I'm a big believer in making the machine do all the remembering so that I can just kind of like be present, be in the moment, like put on the best performance that I'm capable of, which, however good that
Yeah.
is, I don't know. But that's kind of what I'm trying to do, like give you rails to sort of like not have to be stressing about whether the tech's going to work all the time.
Yeah. Well, to me, I'm thinking it's a standard run of show that you would get on any movie or show or commercial I work on, where it's basically hitting the beats and then also mixed with almost like your editing overview, like a simple either a 2-column, this is the text or this is the audio, this is the video.
Yeah.
And then when you're doing it live, you basically that turns into like an AI producer, like a live producer that's like literally hitting the beats for you. So you can just, because I think that's the tough thing about, I always struggled with, I love creating the commercial work, and that was is still my career. But like the work I do and at that level, I can't do by myself. Like there's just, the work I'm used to doing is 10 to 20 people, and you get used to that. And it's like, oh, I can't haul these lights and rig all this. I'll be here. I mean, I've done that in my studio for smaller stuff, and it's like I'm spending 4+ hours just setting up by myself. So it's like any tool that I can create faster and just keep creating. Yeah, I think with less barriers is great.
It's tricky. And the other side, the other reason I'm so into this approach is just a live approach to video is editing is such a process. And there's not really a way to speed it up because you have to watch it in real time over and over again. So the more you're sort of like editing in the recording this way. And even if you do a little bit, it just means, so now instead of sort of like recording some content, going into Final Cut, like spending 8 hours sort of editing it down and trying to get the good bits and then sort of exporting that, I will do a run through with my script and I'll tweak my script. It'll update the teleprompter live as I go. And then I'll do another take and I'll do like, maybe 10 takes on something. But then I've got like a really solid piece of content, and I can still I take it into Descript now and just sort of like tighten it up and tidy it up a little bit. And it just, it's so much more maintainable. It's so much more sustainable to sort of do this live editing, live production process. So I'm really interested in sort of like making that easier to do as well, as much as you can catch sort of in camera. And I think that helps the performance as well, because you're trying to like edit together different energy levels and all that kind of stuff can be it multiplies the effort, doesn't it? Like when you're sort of doing it that way.
I mean, I'm a little embarrassed to admit the whole live editing, like that's new for me. I'm talking like within like 4 months. Cause again, like just my background, I would record full 4K on multiple cameras, bring it into Resolve is what I was using now. And yeah, it would take forever. And it's just like, I can't do that. And then I started playing with like OBS, and then, that's just, I keep exploring. And yeah, I mean, I'm kind of hoping with the podcast, that's a part of it too, is like, as I'm nerding out on stuff I can share, and maybe that can just help people, move along a little faster, their process too.
Yeah. And as you say, just keeping that momentum going, like anything you can take, anything to speed it up. And it does, you still like, I'm a bit nervous about my sound at the moment because like I just got a microphone that I can't really monitor properly, and I hope it's coming through okay. But as long as the sound doesn't get messed up, then you're pretty much good to go, because you can see it, you can sort of monitor it, you can look at it as you're going and you go, okay, that looks right. You're not going to try and fix it in post, right? Like, you're just going to get it.
Yeah. Can you share anything that's coming up next, or anything we should look out for? Or?
I mean, I just added a laser pointer to Video Pencil, so that's pretty exciting news. But
I do like that though. I'm serious. I think sometimes, and I've noticed this in like the commercial world, like the people that focus on the little things sometimes, like it makes the biggest difference from just the way you do your background or lighting. But like even with that, like you're joking the laser pointer, it's like, that's cool. And if no one's seen that yet and you're the first person, all of a sudden you're just doing something different, it's pretty cool. It's like an easy tool just to up your production value, I feel like.
So to sort of go, I mean, I have on my website, I build in public. So I do everything out in the open. I share my sales numbers every week. And I do a weekly live sort of Zoom chat with, usually there's like 10 odd people there, and sort of like talk about what I'm doing. But I have a roadmap that is public as well. But something that I'm moving towards is, so Video Pencil Camera was this Mac app that I made just to kind of make Video Pencil connect really easily. But it started becoming a bit of a sort of AV hub on my Mac for doing things. And one of the things I'd been working on is adding a virtual mic to that. And so that you can, because you'll find if you have multiple cameras, sometimes there's a little bit of mic delay on that camera. And that's especially if you want to just get that live edit. I'm adding tools into that to let you calculate the delay. There's a free browser-based delay calculator. If your delay is out of sync, you can use a little tool I've made where you just clap. But that's going into Video Pencil Camera. But something I'm excited about is the idea of saving out a horizontal video and a vertical video from the same session with a sort of like live opinionated edit. So on the big camera, if I switch to my iPad, say, it's going to have sort of just the iPad view or whatever in a frame. But if I do it on the vertical video, then maybe it puts me on the bottom and the iPad on the top, or if there's titles, it will put those in a layout that makes sense for that vertical content and start to be able to sort of actually spit out 2 videos whenever I do a live recording, and start to be able to put that stuff on both TikTok and YouTube, and sort of like not always feel like I have to make that permanent decision up front with my content editing. Like, I've done all this horizontal, so I can't use it on TikTok. Like, is this kind of permanent thing? Or I've shot this video because I was in a bit of a vertical video phase, and now I want to use it in this horizontal. I had it today. It's like, these are all vertical because I was vertical that week. And now it's like I'm cropping it in and it looks hideous, you know? So I want to get that. I want to really sort of have a go at creating a content production process that like sort of lets you get both of those at the same time.
Yeah, and I wonder if there's, on the user side, I mean, for me, I think the easiest way is like if somehow you had guidelines, because if you, like where I'm at now, you could do a 9:16 and the wide, and I'll just have this empty space, which is cool. People do move around, I guess, but I think that's great too, because I'm sure you've heard recently just a little bit of news, and if someone else listening hasn't heard about it, but YouTube is just really taken on the podcasting, and I've noticed podcast clips I've put out there just randomly on it just automatically will go to shorts because they're like a minute, and it's like, man, I need to start making those 9:16 because those are getting like a couple hundred views in like an hour, and it's like, wow, that's like they're really pushing out who's ever putting out new shorts right now.
Yeah. That's definitely, as you say, like having those guys. So on Video Pencil Camera on the Video Pencil on the iPad, I can just have those guidelines showing up. So I know if I'm ever going to draw something that I'm going to be within those lines, and, you know, sort of the viewer won't see that, but I'll kind of know I'm in the safe zone. So this is going to work.
Okay. So you can you could draw something on there for you and not have them see it. Like
or put a guideline that is sort of a Video Pencil Camera is sort of sent, you know, it knows it can give you a guideline and stuff like that so that you can see that and just, So I've got sort of full control over this stack. So I'm just coming up with ways to sort of like help people have a nice workflow and sort of not make you, because you can do some of this stuff, but you have to really know your way around OBS or, you know, it's sort of, or like you're going to record a massive sort of 4K, like 8K video so you can have a decent vertical and horizontal, you know, there's ways you can do it, but I want it to be kind of like sustainable and really easy to do. But as you say, like also, if you do want to kind of go expert mode, it doesn't stop you from doing that as well. And that's kind of a principle in all my stuff. Like I want you to be able to plug and play, but I also want you to be able to get the sort of like serious stuff as well.
Yeah. And I'm curious, not to go back on the one app, but before we wrap up, quick question with that. Can someone else be drawing for me? Like, let's say I'm giving a presentation, whether live or a pre-recorded. Could I have a producer that's also there? Could they like draw for me or even remote? Like, is there a way to, I don't know how that would work, but
like in the room, like they can just grab the iPad, obviously. But,
that's true. Yeah. If it was like a virtual thing. Yeah. Like if they were on a different computer, I guess.
Remote stuff. I mean, Shoot, you know, I have infrastructure. So Shoot like has a browser-based remote control. You can take full control of your camera settings on any browser. So you can have it on your computer, have it like on it. Some people put it on another iPhone and control it like that. So Shoot's already sort of like communicating. And one of my current projects is sort of get everything really cohering. So like if I'm looking at my desktop on the iPad and I want to zoom in, it's going to zoom into the desktop on the computer because I pinched on the iPad because I wanted to draw on that bit of the iPad. So that then it's sort that idea of sort of having a collaborative remote production thing. There's some sort of hints of it coming through here and there, but it's, and I think sort of being able to collaborate on a drawing, if someone can start drawing, you know, there's a lot of virtual whiteboards out there, right? Already, like Zoom has stuff built in. I mean, the short answer is like the tech is sort of like in there a little bit. And it's just really, I'm trying to find that use case. Okay, what would it be exactly? I need to sort of get my head around what you're actually trying to do. And if I can come up with a way that it's not so confusing that no one ever does it, because it's very easy to sort of add these features and then no one ever uses them because they don't know how to get to them, or it's a bit of a headache and they're already thinking about 100 other things. So if I tend to sort of like dwell on these things and then I see a way through and then I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll build that because I can tell people how to do that. Technologically, you know, I sort of just about have what you need in there, but then I'd be like, well, what do I do? Do I send you to like a URL on the website and click on that? And, you know,
it's almost what I'm thinking in my head is I have some events coming up this spring and summer, and it, you know, I would love the overthinking person of, you know, inside of me and the wanting to overproduce sometimes. It's just like I would love to be able to just focus on talking and doing things, you know, engaging with the audience, maybe still have control if I want to move stuff, but then someone else somewhere else is like actually doing the run of show, so to speak. So like sharing the screens and changing that. So I feel like that's almost like they need to tap into like, I don't know.
Well,
still figuring that. We won't figure it out on this podcast, but that's something I'm working on.
I mean, as you've got me thinking about it, I mean, the fact is Video Pencil uses NDI, which is a network-based, like it doesn't have to, but it can use NDI. So there's no reason you couldn't set up like a VPN, like a tunnel through, and you could do some clever stuff to make that happen. And I know Ecamm can be remote controlled. You know, you just need to sort of, if you can give it an address and give it some sort of tunnel, then there's nothing to necessarily stop you, but you sort of, you know, very much I'd have to know the sort of skills of the people involved and, you know, what their level of comfort is with different aspects of this. Because my focus is on like, okay, what can I actually sort of like make normal people able to do?
No, I think that's important. Yeah, for sure. And same here. I don't want to make it so complicated, but that's just been a thought in addition to building out more of a studio space. So I could have like 2 or 3 people in one space. So you can, it's a hybrid, I guess. It's trying to mix like the old school switcher room that has everything right there, but to just put out virtually. But so
I think you could do it though if you really put your mind to it.
This is good. See, this is the other thing that I love about this podcast is just being able to talk to you and come on and just talk and hear about your software, because selfishly I wanted to know it more and see how I can use it a little better. And then just kind of, I don't know, it's just inspiring talking to other people that just get into trying to make things better.
And that's how I've learned a lot of this stuff as well. Like, you know, I've had a couple of different podcasts where I meet people and they showed me the kind of text into, I was like, oh, that's cool. And you sort of start taking these ideas and it's great. And it's something that you get from the video conversations that I think, and it sort of comes back to that original thing of like fidelity does make a difference. Having a blurry camera, having horrible sound is a killer for a conversation. Not quite being able to hear someone properly puts all this cognitive load on your brain. And like, it's hard to actually sort of have a conversation because your brain is too busy trying to like make out what they said or make out their facial expression. So the more fidelity, like the bandwidth that you can have in a conversation, the more freely you can communicate. And that's really sort of my central drive for all this is like, how do we sort of use the technology to sort of minimize just to maximize how much we can communicate by increasing the fidelity, adding tools that let you kind of like say something that, you know, use the whiteboard, show a picture, show something without interrupting the flow of that conversation. And crisp camera, crisp audio are just really important for just being able to communicate clearly and connect with someone else.
Yeah, totally. And especially, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of us listening, we're on camera to make money, even if we love what we're doing. I mean, if it is your job to be selling something, so why not just do it's the same thing. I mean, I call it like a digital suit. Like, think of how much money we spent pre-pandemic on certain clothes that we would only wear for a meeting, an office, a certain client, whatever. Just like if you put that money into, you know, some of your on-camera setup, you'd be in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, it's definitely a really good analogy that I sort of latched onto as well, sort of recently.
Yeah, same here. It's like, yeah. And also the other thing too, I've been finding as I've been helping some people transform their space is it's just the confidence. Like one person I worked with, he texts me all the time. He's like, "Oh, I love being on camera now." He's like, "Oh, this is so much more fun." And he's doing more within Amazon where he works. So that's been cool to see that. That's like, okay, there's more to it than just like looking good and having these like fun toys to play with. It's like there's actually, I don't know, on a personal level, mental health level, I think that's a really cool thing that I wasn't really expecting when I first got into this.
And just doing it a lot and sort of like raising your game every time. Like, I recorded a podcast for it. Like, we did 4 years in the end, and my confidence in my own ability to just speak and hear myself speaking just was so transformed by that. And I think that's something that we can sort of do for a lot of people as well, kind of help you deal with the kind of technical stuff so that you can just get on that, just keep doing it, and you'll just develop that confidence in a way that it only comes from doing, right? Like
it's true. Really... Yeah. Seat time, as I've heard it said before, meaning the only way to really learn it is do it. You just have to sometimes just throw yourself in and do it. So Michael, with everything, where's the best place for people to find out more about you, connect with you, and learn more about the apps to get going on those?
Yep. So just come to squares.tv. You'll find me, you'll find my apps, and there's sort of like podcast interviews, blog posts, things like that. There's a mail. If you sign up to the newsletter, I will reach out pretty quickly and we'll, just sort of start that conversation. I have some stuff to share that could be useful. And I've got some sort of free tools on there as well. But yeah, just come to squares.tv. I answer, this is my full-time job. So if you send me an email, I'm going to get to it. And, if you need some help with something, I'm going to be like, yeah, I can learn from this and I'll do my best to help you out. And of course, I have a Discord as well, which is connected from there. So that's sort of getting to a decent size now. So if you sort of have questions, you might be able to get some help. If it's a weekend and I'm trying to have some downtime, someone else may even be able to help you with stuff there as well.
Yeah, and you have a whole suite of anyone that just wants to poke around and know more, even without contact. Your YouTube is pretty great as a reference to see all your apps and kind of go through it as well. So that's kind of where I got started on that. Cool. So check out his YouTube too if you want to learn, if you want to get started.
It's funny because you have to be a bit specific because I have my own Michael Forrest YouTube, which is a sort of music-y one, and I've got a shoot YouTube channel. But then I sort of tried making, and then I've got a beat sheet YouTube channel and a video pencil YouTube channel. And it's sort of like, in my head, I wanted the icon to be of the app. And now I'm like, it's also spread out and I never know which thing to put it on. And my Michael Forrest has like 3,000 subscribers and Shoot has like 150. It's just, it's a bit of a mess. So the thing on Squares TV, I say that it's sort of like the mailing list on Squares TV is sort of where I'm tying everything together as best I can. But yeah, the YouTube, good. Come and subscribe to everything, please do.
Yeah. No, the newsletter's good. I think I'm subscribed to that too, but cool. Awesome. Michael, thank you so much, man. Thanks for taking the time. And anyone that hasn't checked out these apps or has even anyone that hasn't tried their iPhone as a webcam should also do that too, because it makes a huge difference. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for checking out On Camera, On Brand. This episode is produced by Motion, a podcast agency that helps B2B organizations create their own shows. If you enjoyed what you learned, check out more episodes at motionagency.io/oncameraonbrand.